Hey, how's it going? So we're going to be making this in React. Very, very basic. So we have 4 pictures to display. And you see the way they rotate. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right? And you see when it rotates from 4 to 1, it appears as if 1 is coming from here, where in reality it's in here. Well, you see what I mean. And when we go like this, it also works. So it's just a carousel. All right, so let's get started. Okay, dogs. So I'm assuming you already have your Create React app loaded. All right, so we just write a test so we can see it. And then what am I gonna do? Maybe I should split my screen into 2 like this. And then do this in here, maybe like this. Yeah, let's just do this. Okie dokie. All right, so we're gonna remove the test. And we're gonna, what are we gonna do? I'm probably gonna put this like this, and then this alone in here. Like so. Okay, so the first thing we need is we need to load up the data. So this is the data. You can honestly put anything in here, but I can't really. Well, honestly, I'm gonna copy and paste this into a Google Docs so you can use it from the Google Docs. Okay. So when you get it, it's gonna be like this. So what you need to do in here is you need to write export const data. So we name the const, and now we can use it now. Okay. So 9 to 10. I'm gonna skip my break for this video. Okay. So now we have our data. We need to load this data in here. Import data from. I think it's data like this. Okay, quick check that it's here. Console log data. Let's see. So there is the array. Okay, good stuff. I'm probably gonna position this on the bottom, right? Data. Yeah. Okay, good. So there's our data. All right. So next thing we need to do is we need to probably loop through the data. That's the first thing we probably need to do. So let's do map. Oh, whoops. Data.map value index. Now index is very important here, so make sure you have it available. And then we need to extract. So from here we're extracting const, and we're going for ID. Oh, whoopsie, wrong brackets. ID, name, and I think it's image in here as well, right? I'm pretty sure there's image. Yeah. We need the image. And that's going to be from value. And here we're going to return. Now, what are we going to return? We need to return a div, right? So this will be our class name, general wrapper. And then we need to give it a key of ID. Now, you need to always give a key when you're mapping. Otherwise, it's not going to work. All right, so in here, we need to put another div with class name of, yeah, so class name is going to be later. So this class name will come from a variable that we're going to create. All right, so we need an image. Image will come from here. Alternative we don't need, and then we need also probably, we do a p tag, we do name, and then we do ID. Now this, you don't have to do it, but I mean, it really helps us to see where we are. Okay, so now the image is a little bit too big, so we need to style the image. So we'll do im height, let's do 400 pixels, and then width, let's do 400 pixels as well. Now it's reload. Okay, so now we see all the images. Actually, let's make it a bit smaller. There's no need for us to make it so big. Yeah, okay, good. All right. Honestly, we want to position probably in here. So we need to create this and call this class name container. And we're going to take container, border, let's do 1 pixel solid, red, so we can see it, right? Let's do width, let's do, I don't know, 600 pixels, height, let's do, let's do 800 pixels, okay? And then margin auto, so it will be positioned in the middle. So now we refresh. Okay, we don't see anything. Container. Oh, we do see it. It's just a bit too big. You know what we're gonna do? We're gonna say display, flex, and then we're gonna justify content, center, and then align content, align items, center as well. All right, it's a bit of a mess, but we're gonna fix it. That's no problem. Okay, so now we need some buttons in here as well. So we're mapping in here. We need a div. We'll call this button folder, okay? Whoops. Button folder. Then we're gonna create button x2. So this will be previous slide, and this will be next slide. Okay. Let's get, this will be ID, let's do previous, and this will be ID next. All right, so let's see. Buttons are probably in here. Yeah, that's exactly what I thought. So now we need to do flex direction and do column, I think, right? Is that correct? Or it should be row. I keep mixing them up. Okay, so we need column. Column. Yeah, that's perfect. That's exactly what I'm looking for. Okay, dokes. So don't worry about it looking messy. It's not a big deal. So now we need So, okay. So now we need to create 3 classes. So one is called active slide. Okay. So this will be transform. Translate x is going to be 0. And then we need a transition 0.5 seconds. So this will make it smoother. Transition. Okay. So the next we need is a previous slide class. So we're going to transform, translate x minus 100%. So what this will do, this will shift the, honestly, I'll just move this in here because it's going to be very difficult to see. So what this will do, this will move the picture 100% of its width to the left. If it's minus, if it's to the left. If it's plus 100, it will move it to the right. So that's what we're going to do. And then we copy this and we're going to create next slide, which is move it to the right. Next slide. Okay. So now think about it this way, right? So if it's active, it stays in the center. If it's next slide, it's moved its width to the right. If it's previous, it will move its width to the left, right? Okay. So now what we need to do, we need to apply, so class name is equal to previous slide to all of them. And then we need position absolute on all of them. Position absolute, I think, right? On all of them. So they will stack together, I think, right? Man, this flex thing made a big mess. Honestly, I'm gonna remove this from here, I think. I'm just gonna create a button holder because it looks very bad right now, you see. It looks very bad. So I'm gonna move the, I'm gonna do the button holder and I'm gonna move it to, let's do position relative and do top. Oops. And let's do top 700 pixels. Whoops. Yeah, that's because I did this in here. A little bit messy, but that's okay. Let's do the 700 pixels. See how this looks. Well, this is good enough. It will give you the idea of what it should work. So now we have buttons in here. Okay. All right. So now all of them are moved to to the left because the class that is applied to all of them is previous slide. So now we're gonna create a variable. Make sure that it's inside the mapping. Okay. So we do let position equals previous slide. And now the class name is going to be changed to the position. So now you see every one of them is actually previous slide. Okay, so when it's mapping through every single iteration, right, we can now apply a different class depending on the type of index. So you have to imagine that every single one of our iterations has its index, right? And the system can identify what index is in there. All right. So the idea is now we need to create a state. So we need to import two things from React. We need use state and use effect from React. So now we need to create a state that will see if the slide. So every time you click a button, it will change this index. So we're gonna call this index tracker, right? So we can call this index tracker, set index tracker, use state, right? And we're gonna start with 0. Okay, so now we need buttons to add and remove from the index tracker. So we do on click equals this, like this, set index tracker to index tracker +1. So, oh, -1, my apologies. So this is previous. So every time we click previous, it will minus from here. And vice versa. If we click on next, it will add. So this will be next. All right. Okay, next thing we need to track our index tracker. So we're gonna do use effect. I actually have a special code for this use effect. There you go. So every time index tracker changes, we want to console log it so we can see where we are. Console log index tracker. Okay. So let's see. Let me just move this to on the side. Okay. So you see when we click it, it shows us the index tracker. Now the thing about this one is we need to make sure that when it reaches 0, right, it goes back to. Actually, we can deal with that. Well, we need to make sure that it works within the parameters of the length of the data. So if it's 0, right, so we need to set up a condition, right? If index tracker is equal to 0, we want it to jump to the last slide, okay? Because index tracker is the active slide that's going to be displayed, right? So if it's 0, it has to go to the last slide, right? So if index tracker is 0, set index tracker to data dot length -1. And if, whoops, and then if index tracker is equal to data.length minus 1. Then we want set index tracker to 0. So we are always working either from 0 to the length of the data. This way we don't go overboard. Oh, whoops. Yeah, I did it incorrectly here. Set index tracker to 0. What the hell is going on? Oh, I created infinite loop somehow. Okay, why is that? Hmm. Oh, yeah. Because it has to be smaller than 0. Otherwise, it's gonna have a smaller than 0. Otherwise, it's gonna be infinitely looping. Yeah. And then if index tracker is bigger than data length, then we set it to 0. Yeah. Then now it makes sense. Otherwise, it's just gonna keep looping. Okay, so now we need to make sure that our so the maximum can go to 4. That means there's 4 slides, so it goes only to 4. Yeah, that's exactly what it should be doing. Okay, good stuff. Now this will prevent, actually I'm gonna remove this, honestly. So you'll see what I mean. You'll see later why we need it. Okay, so here it's gonna be very complicated, a little bit complicated. So if index tracker, right, is equal to index, we want position to be set to active slide. Okay, so now you can see that this slide is in here, is in position 0. So this is minus 100, and it's going to be here plus 100. So this is the center. Actually, I'm going to remove this red border so you don't get confused. Whoops. And then top, I'll do maybe 250. So it looks a bit better. Yeah. So you see all the slides are stacked together in position minus 100. And then one is in position of 0. And then we need to move one in here. Okay. So you see, because now index is 0. So when it scans, when it maps, it looks at the index and says, is the index equal to index tracker? Right? So index tracker is 0, index is 0. So if this matches, it applies the class of active slide. Right? By default, they're all previous slides. Now, so now we need to, if index equals to index tracker minus 1, all right, then we want position to be previous slide. Okay, so when it maps through it, it looks at the index tracker. So let's say index tracker at position number 2, and it will apply the class of previous slide to index 1 within the map. Does that make sense? So index tracker is the system that we are using to move the classes, right? So when index and index tracker match, it applies active slide, this class here. Now, if the index in the map is index tracker minus 1, it applies previous slide. And vice versa, if index is equal to index tracker plus 1, then it will apply next slide. Okay, so if index is equal to, now this will not work, of course, but I'll show you why. Plus 1, then position next, oh whoopsie, next slide. Now it works temporarily, but you'll see some errors in here, okay? So look, you see? So now this is 2, this is 3, this is 4, and now we're empty, okay? So the idea is when it's at position 4, slide 1 has to go here. All right. So the way to, but if we, okay, so we need to do 10 to 11. I'm almost done for today. So you see the problem, right? You see the problem. Well, let's solve the problem number 1, right? Is that when index slider, right, index tracker is at position, at the last position, which is data length minus 1, and index is equal to 0, which is the first slide in the map, in the mapping, in the array, right? We want it to be positioned as next slide, okay? So think about the logic again. Think about the logic again, all right? So if index tracker is equal to data length minus 1, that means we reach the end of our array. And index is equal to 0, which means in our map method, right, we found the first slide. We want to set that slide to position next slide. It's a little bit confusing, but I mean, if you just do it multiple times, you will see that like you'll understand the logic. So this is 2, this is 3, this is 4. You see now 1 isn't here because if I console log it, I think it's going to be easier to understand. I'm just going to remove this code here so you'll see what I mean. So we start off, right? And let me just write it out. This is index tracker state, okay? So now we can see it. All right, so we start off at 0, right? So this is in the map, index is 0, and our index tracker is also 0, right? So when I click in here, index tracker is gonna increase by 1. All right, so now it increased by 1. Active slide is applied. Index tracker -1, position 0 is gonna be in here. Index 1 and index tracker +1 is gonna be in here. So we click again. So now we're on 2. So this is in the map, this is index 2. Well, it's actually index 3, honestly. Well, this is index 3, right? And in here we have -1, 2 minus 1 is 1. So this is lady. Think about like a map is in here, and we have our 4 images. 1, 2, 3, 4. So this lady is number 2. So she's 1. So she's in here. And this guy will be in here. Man, it's so complicated. You just have to, like, if you do it, you'll figure out why that happens, right? So when we go to the last slide, so now our index is the length of the array -1. And this slide is index 0 in the map, in the array. So the class that is applied is NEXTSLIDE, right? Now we have a problem where index tracker is going over the length of the data. So there's nothing to display. Okay, there are no conditions to display it. And we have another problem where the index tracker can go into negative, right? So we need to make sure that it's either the maximum it can go to is either 0 or 4. All right. So this is why I told you that we need to have this condition in here. So if index tracker is less than 0, it will go to the end of the array, which is data length -1. So we set it to end of the array. If index tracker is bigger than the array, length of the array, then we set it to start 0. Okay. So this will eliminate this problem. So you see 1, 2, 3. You see? Now there's one problem. There's one problem. You see this lady is sliding from here. She's sliding out from here. Whereas she should be sliding out from here. All right. So the way to overcome that is so we click in here, in here. So the problem is why does that happen? I think it's because why is that a problem? Wait, it's not supposed to be the problem. let me just put opacity. So opacity 0. Now we set opacity 0 to next and previous slide, so they're not visible. That's why. Yeah, you see this problem here. Look, you see. So we start with 0, right? 2, 3, 4. And now the slide is coming from the left, where it should be coming from the right. You see, it should be coming from here. All right. Whereas in here, it's working fine, you see? But in here, you see, one slide is going from incorrectly, right? And that problem comes from, let me just think for a sec. Okie doke, so I fixed the bug. So the problem with this bug is you need to have general wrapper set to position absolute. Like you cannot do this, for example, right? This will not work. So you're applying absolute position to everything else, and you're gonna have this bug now in here. Okay, we probably need to restart to see what's going on. Because for some reason it's like as if it's fixed, you know. But I don't see it being fixed. Because like the bug self-fixed itself, do you know what I mean? And I know it's not correct. Oh no, it actually works. Huh, that's weird. Computers, right? And they say computers are accurate. Look, you see the bug is now like self-fixed. So previously it was not working for no reason whatsoever, and now it's just working. Anyway, well, generally speaking, like, I mean, you can do it this way. And just put position absolute in here, and just a bit of background. And then it kind of starts working. Okay. So there's the carousel for you. Take care. Bye bye bye.